Hello there. Good day again. This is Azer here. I'm going to discuss this one crucial and possibly controversial take for what I think the Fantasy Star crew is doing with the current NGS games path, I guess. Now, there is a reason why I title my video as such. Why is PSO2 NGS constantly being misunderstood by a lot of gamers out there? Now, when I talk about misunderstanding, it's not like the game's issue is actually part of the features or that the game lacking content is actually a non-issue. No, I'm not actually talking about those kind of stuff. It's actually a much more different kind of topic that I wanted to discuss about. Let's then present this case of why the game is actually doing weird decisions that are probably misunderstood by players who are probably from other MMORPGs or other online games out there, who recently just started playing NGS for the first time, or maybe have been playing PSO2 for quite a while and just probably don't notice it at all. PSO2 NGS, well, I mean long before even New Genesis was announced, was always a casual friendly game. As I am always playing it on and off, like previously on the JP and C server, and eventually until the global launch at 2020. I can do that because it's the only online game I can personally say the most comfortable one out of all multiplayer games I've played. Except for maybe certain non-combat co-op games or party games, I suppose. Now, why is that? You see, we live in a society where everybody is just competing against each other. You have to determine if you are actually a high class person or you are actually of a lower status person, how much wealth you have, how much education you have received, how much properties or businesses you own, and a lot of other things that you can think about when competing with each other as human beings. This is unfortunately an instinct that we human beings always had. The survivors are basically the ones who are on the top because they are able to survive the harsh conditions from the past until today. In the end, you're probably asking then, isn't the game like a terrible game then if it is not something that you like to play or it doesn't have the features that you like? No. Now, let me ask you then, what kind of games that we are currently playing that is very similar to PSO2 NGS here? Elden Ring, Breath of the Wild, Genshin Impact? Yeah, I guess all of those open world games have some similar gameplay that is probably able to be compared to PSO2 NGS. But let me ask you then, is PSO2 NGS playing like those other games? Not really. Like Elden Ring is literally Dark Souls but in an open world, so your movement is really slow or purposely, limited just so that the game is harder for you to play. And not everybody is going to enjoy that kind of gameplay. Same thing goes for Genshin Impact. It is an action RPG game, but you only have several attacks and skills that in such a way that you need to actually switch around with different characters. If you don't have the proper characters, you would not be able to enjoy the game to its fullest. So yeah, I mean the game world is pretty good and all, but after you explore everything and you reach the max rank, you have nothing else to do other than just doing dailies and weeklies until the next event and content drop happens. Wouldn't you say that is the same for PSO2 and NGS as well? I mean, both are free to play and both are technically doing the same thing, except that NGS is actually much more free to play friendly. So in the end, I'll just say that game comparison is really not fair. Like PSO2 NGS is a free to play title that is being pitted against something like Final Fantasy XIV or WoW or Warframe or every other MMORPGs or MMO action RPGs or FPS games that you think of that are live service are somehow being compared to this free-to-play friendly game. I wouldn't blame people if they wanted to have a similar experience in those games in this PSO2 NGS experience, but you know what? This game by itself is very different. It's different enough that I can say that this game has one certain feature that every one of those other games don't have. Alright, so what is this one feature that this game has that the other games don't have? PSO2 NGS is the laziest online game there is. Now, I know a lot of people might think, oh no, it's a bad thing, right? It sounded like a negative trait. But actually, contrary to our beliefs, it's not really bad at all. Now, when I say lazy, I really mean it. PSO2 NGS is kind of its own thing because it has this very unique gameplay loop that is very relaxing for new and casual players, but also for veterans and long-time players alike. So reason being because PSO2 NGS doesn't exactly force you to play it. Like I know there are mission pass and daily login gift systems, but in reality, you can just skip all those and you'll be fine. And not to mention, you can actually clear the mission pass. In fact, you can literally just buy your gear from the player store if you are able to afford it. So, this then in turn becomes something that is very weird for a lot of players who probably play a lot of MMORPGs, and they went into PSO2 NGS with this mentality of, okay, this game has an end game. I will reach it with the top tier gear, with the highest end weapon there is, and with the best augments there is, so that I can clear all these contents, you know? Now, let me then ask you, what are the endgame contents that's available since the Quarries update? Number 1, Quarries triggers. Number 2, Dark Files Rank 2. Number 3, Geometric Labyrinth. And number 4, Ancients, Gigantix, and Veteran Boss Huntings. So, if you look at all of these endgame contents, answer me this. Are they essential for your gearing and progression? I believe the answer is a definite no. Now, hear me out. The loot for these endgame content are not exactly some crazy endgame gear or ultimate weapons or whatever. This endgame content just drops some very unique vanity items like accessories and unique motions that can be sold on the player market. Sure, there is some, some exclusive augments like the trail augments from the Geometric Labyrinth, but it is also purchasable from the player shop. So a lot of those endgame players or just players who are gotten used to MMORPG gameplay loop are basically just always there thinking about in their heads, okay, I need to be ready for these endgame content with my top tier gear. I need to be at my best, I need to have the best weapons, I need to have the best armors and so on in order to tackle the boss so that I wouldn't die, or so that I have deal enough DPS to take down the boss, etc, etc. But on the contrary, casual players would be like, oh, I'm not the best players, I don't really have the best gears, but I would try my best to clear this boss. And they could do it. Not to mention even that Koiji, I believe is one of the content creators of this game, he managed to clear the Dark Files Rank 2 with just an Evo Eclipse gang. Literally everybody in their party is just using an Evo Eclipse weapon, which mind you is the weakest 6-star weapon that was handed out for free for every player before the Quarries region release. So, I mean, if they are able to do it with the weakest 6-star weapons, which are basically like the most minimal gear possible for everybody who is in Quarries region, the only difference that the high-end gear is going to provide for you is just shorter time of clearing, and that's it. You are going to clear the boss faster because you have higher damage, and you are able to survive the boss better because you have better augments, or you have higher HP from those augments as well. But for the most part, it's mostly 70% skill and 30% gear. So that means your gear is going to help you out, but not really that much as comparison to your skill. I understand there's a lot of players who look at video guides and talk about the meta, or talk about which weapon has the min-max or the top tier min-maxing of which weapon has the highest potency according to their Pixar stats and whatnot. No, actually, you know what? Just play the game on your own pace. You don't really need the high-end gear at the moment, unless the game actually, gives it to you, which I believe in the future they will. Now, hold your horses if you are a player with 7 stars and top tier augmented armors or whatever. I'm not saying that 7 stars weapons or just your powerful Eddie and Mastery 4 capsules are useless. It's just that they are not necessary. The reason why the game was designed as such is that they know that the game has a lot of casual players. How are they going to clear the content if the content variance using those equipment. Think about it. If the devs suddenly, force, like, for example, the Dark Files rank 2 only be clearable using 7-star weapons, I believe the majority of the players just literally quit the game, because why would you need to force the player to get this higher rarity weapon that is very hard to get or requires a lot of time to grind in order to just clear the end game? Can't we, clear it using other methods at all? So, the method of how the developers want to cater to casuals is then in turn to make the endgame content optional content. So, endgame players can still clear the endgame content if they wanted to. They can organize a team, they can, try to figure out the best way to clear the bosses and so on, and they will be enjoying it. Yes. And that's it. If they get those exclusive rewards, then so be it. They can sell it, they can earn money from it. It's also a win-win for them, because they are the ones who put in the effort to grind their gears, to get the best equipment and so on. That's why it's actually worth it for them to clear it faster or do it easier with those high-end gear. What about casual players? Casual players, they don't have all the time in the world to play PSO2 NGS 24/7 or 16 hours a day or 10 hours a day of gameplay. No. They have a job, they have school, they have families to take care of, they have real life responsibilities they need to do. So they are not possible for them to, play PSO2 NGS forever just to get that Blizzardium for you to get the Kaiser weapons, right? So as a casual player, they are definitely just not able to get the Kaiser weapons at all until the game actually provides them a way to get Blizzardium easier. Which I believe, since the first patch of New Genesis the devs are literally just doing the same thing over and over again. Firstly, release something that is very powerful, and then secondly, make it easier to get eventually. So the devs are basically using this method in such a way that professional players, meta chasers, can literally get the best equipment as fast as they wanted to if they put the effort and time into it. While casual players, while they don't have the best gear and best armor, they can also play the wait game and just wait for the game to provide them with easier options for them to use instead of, chasing for the highest end gear possible. Of course, there are also players in between where they can choose to grind when they are free, or when they have no free time, they can just log out. Now, this is actually, in my opinion, is actually a very, very good thing. You see, the reason why all this content, all this endgame content and all the ancients didn't really drop anything is because they don't want the casual players to feel missing out by not doing all those endgame content. Because they understand that the casual players are not exactly the most, hardcore players like us all. So this is actually a very good thing. That means the laziest of all players can enjoy this game without feeling the burden or the FOMO of other games that provide them this, had to force them to log in order for them to get content done or get some certain equipment and so on. So that in turn actually gives us a very, very nice environment to play in. It makes the game feel very lazy in a good way. So that means players can just enjoy the game by their own pace. They can just log in to the game and they can just play while they have time, and they can log out after they feel bored, or maybe they can just keep on online and talking to their friends in the lobby instead of like playing the game directly, because it's much more fun to socialize with your friend. Or they might think it's actually much better to just spend some time in the salon to fashion yourself and show off your fashion to other friends so that your other friends will jealous and go into the salon again. All in all, the game is a very, very casual, friendly, and hardcore friendly game. A lot of people who are playing other MMORPGs or playing mobile games and a lot of other games out there that have a lot of competition in terms of like gearing systems and the meta chasing, don't bring that same mentality into this game. This game, I believe they are just They are trying to make this game in such a way that it's going to be enjoyable for all kinds of players, regardless of how much time the player has committed to play this game. So PSO2 NGS is then in turn a game that you can play with your own way and pace. Sometimes you might not need to log in at all when you are very busy or you have some important matters to attend to in real life, and you will not be missing a lot of things if you don't play the game in a certain time period. And once you have some free time, you can then log in back and, play the game a bit. And once you completed the important tasks, you can then log out again if you are still busy, and so on. Because of how free-to-play friendly this game is, it also makes sense that a lot of the players are just playing the game casually, relax and enjoy the game as what it is. At the moment, the game doesn't have a lot of content, so if you think you have completed all of necessary content that the game has already provided to you, you can then, stop playing PSO2 NGS and play other games. And that is the flexibility that is provided from this game. That is the best thing about PSO2 NGS that I believe a lot of players are misunderstanding about how this game works. And in conclusion, play the game your pace, don't be too toxic. For everybody who is going to come and play the game when the PlayStation port is going to release in the end of August, can't wait to see you guys. So long, sayonara. See you guys next time.